Valentine. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Brew AI, and I'm here today to talk to the audience of the Global Empowerment Summit about artificial intelligence for small and medium enterprises and how you can take advantage of this new and exciting revolution in technology and this most profound shift. It may sound like a strange thing to say given the year that we've had, what with the pandemic and climate change and many of the things impacting our world. But if you can look past those things, it truly is a marvelous time to be alive. And when you look at the strides that we've made in medicine, in getting to space, in understanding our natural world, and so much of how we are able to live in the world around us, to the extent we can move past some of these natural issues, it really is a wonderful time to be here. And a key force in changing the way in which we'll be living is artificial intelligence. Many people believe it'll be much more profound impact to us than the internet. And obviously the internet has been a very profound impact on our life. So AI is a very exciting trend. So I'm happy to be able to speak to you about it. There are probably as many definitions of artificial intelligence as there are people that work in the field. But generally understood, artificial intelligence is a branch of software development that leverages computers and machines to mimic human behavior, to do things like humans would. There's generally a self-learning component where the systems get smarter and optimized as they do their things. There are many different forms of artificial intelligence, and I'll talk about that. But fundamentally, it's really just computers trying to be like people and make decisions as people would. There's a lot of talk about deep learning, and deep learning is probably the most used area of AI right now, but it is just one of the branches of AI, and I think it can be really useful to understand some of the different technology sets and how they're used, because I work actually in a different field than neural networks, as do others. And each form of AI brings its own specific skills to the mix. Neural networks are modeled on the human brain. They're actually composed of neurons. Neurons are these sort of little, conceptually a computer cell, layers of operators which take inputs and then process them through many different steps to produce an output. So neural networks are great at identifying patterns in things. They're used for things like computer vision. Typically you would train them just like you would train the human brain on a set of data, whether that's set of images or reading lots of words, and having people tell the system what those things were. It sort of back understands those patterns, and then when you feed it a new image or a new word, it can understand what those are. And so neural networks are the most in use form of AI. Search engines are neural networks, but they're not the only form of AI. Genetic algorithms is another big branch. It's modeled generally on natural processes, a different way of getting to human intelligence. Evolution is a branch of genetic algorithms where rather than try to train a system based on previous patterns, you essentially let the system evolve to get to the right answer on its own, in the same way that our evolutionary processes worked. The type of AI I work with right now is based on bird flocking behavior, and how does a system of particles sort of move together as a group of individuals and also as a complete group to get towards an optimal answer. And so genetic algorithms are great if you're trying to engineer solutions and you don't really have anything to start with. It's been used for things like antenna design and just using usually very simple processes like modeling evolution and mitosis to try different combinations of things until you get towards the optimal result. Bayesian modeling is based on a specific area of statistics. Bayesians look at what can I learn about the past probabilities of events having happened to estimate the probability that they'll happen in the future. So that's very useful in things like genetics. If you're trying to understand the chance that someone will be born with a specific genetic situation, then you can make make judgments based on the previous occurrences in their family. Expert systems were once the in vogue form of AI. They very much focus on modeling the knowledge of human experts, and they've sort of fallen out of favor, but are coming back. And state machines are an area, really a much more sort of simpler type of AI machine, but often used in things like chatbots to help step through decision tree processes and make decisions. So you have all these different types of AI. They're all good for different things. I think what we'll talk about today is mostly in neural networks and evolutionary algorithms, because those seem to be the most useful for business. Why should we care about this for business? It really comes down to the business of business, which was essentially in making of a profit, not to the expense of any human concerns. But the projections by Accenture suggest that by the year 2035, that we will be able to achieve 38% more profitability in our business by using artificial intelligence to transform the way in which we do things. So this is really important for us to do. When you have that kind of spread in profit with AI, without AI, it's also a very clear signal that if for businesses to survive moving forward over the next decade or two, or for most businesses perhaps, that utilizing AI and the tools of AI is going to be really important to achieving success. I sort of broke down the way that AI can benefit our businesses at the top level in three different ways. Right. The first is intelligent automation. What can AI do for me in lieu of humans, perhaps, to get the job done and done more quickly? So whether that's the automated posting of accounting entries, or understanding when a specific form comes in on the email, how it should be scanned, understood, and processed. These are all areas of automation, and that'll obviously create a lot of additional profit to the extent that we can take formerly manual processes and make them automatic, and also make them probably less error prone. Skills augmentation is another key area. How do we make people better through AI? That's a lot of my focus personally on that. The kinds of systems I work with tend to be involved in that area of AI. How do you free people up from the grunt level, sides of their business, or the things that are just time consuming, and allow people to exercise higher order thinking and creativity? And I really think that's one of the main areas AI will impact businesses. And then there's a third impact, which is AI as a function of the business. What is the role that artificial intelligence can play in the delivery of your services and your products inside of those products and services to help you create new types of innovation? So three main sort of buckets. It can help us save costs by automating processes that don't need to be done manually. It can help us by improving our productivity, by augmenting our skills in working in our business. And finally, it can help us by becoming a source of new enhancements for the products or services which we offer. So when you think about how you want to engage with AI as someone in business, there's any number of levels in which you might engage, but I divided it into three. The first is to look at AI enhancements to existing software that you use. Now, you probably already are using these. AI is really all around us. You're familiar with the common examples of Siri and Alexa and Cortana and Google Maps and Waze, and it really is everywhere. As we look at business software, there certainly is a range of tools, and we'll see some of these in the software I'll talk about, that really are using AI to enhance existing functions. And this is a good thing. It makes the software that we use better. It makes it more productive for us, more efficient. And it's something that's generally available now. So I'd be surprised if if at least half the software you typically use in your business is not already talking about some type of AI functionality, which may be light or may be exaggerated, but is there. A much more exciting trend that we're seeing is the use of AI to create capabilities in software that really weren't available. It's not an incremental change, it's an exponential change. The software I work with right now personally fits into this category, as have other tools I've worked with. Breaking past the barriers, not trying to do something better, but trying to do something only. And so we'll look at some of the software that's doing those types of things. And then finally, you can choose to build your own AI as well. And I'll talk about this at the end, but the means to develop AI applications for our own business, or to create our own business using AI is gotten much easier because of the development of a set of tools that allow people, even without deep coding skills, to get into AI. So those are the three ways you can play. Andrea asked me to look through some ways that we can apply AI into business today. So I went on and I did a survey of the field. There are hundreds and if not thousands of packages of software that target small and medium business that talk about AI in some ways. So this is by no means meant to be a complete survey of the field. There's lots of good resources on that. If you're interested in marketing software, I would recommend you look at the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute, which tracks certainly that body of products. But for every different field, I think you'll be able to find good amounts of information. But some of the AI is quite good, and some of the AI people to talk about is less skilled. So looking at the areas, I divided into 4 different areas that we can really use AI to help the business. The first is in marketing. It's the area I know best. We'll talk about tools for search engine optimization and how that can be changed, for conversion rate optimization. How can I sell more things on my website by using AI, display ad bidding, other ways to reduce costs, and then message optimization. How do I make sure that I'm saying the right thing to the right person? So that's on the marketing side. On the selling side of the business, there's many different tools. I have a small business right now, so I'm using quite a few of them as we're building out capabilities, and we just don't have tons of people with which to do them. So there's a huge amount of work that's been done in the field, in the SaaS field, around things like lead scoring, better sales enablement, equipping your salespeople with the right content at the right place, selling on the site, sort of the chat bot selling model, and then other AI tools for sales management. There's all sorts of tools for G&A, for general and administrative, whether that's things to help you with doing smart recruiting, to manage your schedules, which is always a tough challenge, or general knowledge management. And then finally, there's a whole new and exciting world of creativity software, ranging from the light AI touch that I'm using now to things that really generate content in profound ways that we're only starting to scratch the surface of. So I thought I'd divide into these 4 areas and then drill down on some software that might be worth taking a look and could help you run your business with AI. So let's start with marketing. So the first company that's worth taking a look at is a company called Evolve.ai. Evolve is one of these exponential enhancements to a piece of software. It's an alternative for A/B testing. So if any of you are doing e-commerce, you're probably familiar with the need to A/B test everything and try to figure out, what's the right text or button color or layout for the screen or screen flow or different things to make yourself convert better. But the problem with A/B testing has always been that it's a very painstaking and slow pursuit, right? And it can take a long time to run a single test. You get the answer to one question. So what Evolve does, and it uses a combination of evolutionary algorithms, hence the name, and also neural networks, is it allows you to test up to 30 different changes to your funnel that could be on one page or multiple pages at the same time, and it'll evolve the combination that is the best combination of those elements for a given user of the site, right, based on their profiles and audience. So rather than get the best answer out of 2 options, you can spend a little more time and get the best answer out of what could be, literally millions of potential site designs. And so it's all about faster speed to better results. You don't get quite the detail in every minute hypothesis you might if you're doing A/B testing, but if your goal is to increase your revenues now, as opposed to learn every small thing about funnel design, then this is an interesting product to look at. It's used by big enterprises. It's used by medium-sized businesses. If you're really small, it probably isn't the right solution for you. Market Brew, this is just in terms of disclosure, this is the company I work with now. Market Brew is also an exponential type solution that uses search engine modeling to change how companies can do search engine optimization. Right? SEO is a very tough field, traditionally a murky and black art, where everyone has their own idea about this is the way it is and this is what you have to do. They have their set of best practices. And I think the premise of Market Brew is the only way to really understand Google's AI and how it makes its decisions is to use AI to try to model those decisions in reverse. Look at the rankings that come out from Google for a given search engine, look at the sites that are being ranked, and from that, you can then deduce what are the levers or where are the levers set to make Google make its decisions, because those levers differ from country to country and they differ from keyword to keyword. So by building search engine models, we can now, for the first time, tell people, here's what you need to do to rank better for this keyword on this search engine, as opposed to, you really should fix all your title tags, you really should have good content on your pages, those types of general things that in the abstract are great advice, but in the real world, most of them actually don't do anything. So this is an interesting example of AI. It uses a form of evolutionary AI called particle swarm optimization based on bird flocking behavior to optimize the hundreds of parameters that ultimately help us build that search engine model and model Google's behavior. So if you're doing SEO, and this works for pretty much everyone, Rosato is a real leader in the area of copywriting. It's really their focus. They started out at the very beginning as an email subject line testing system and building, but they really have built a really marvelous business in generating marketing copy. I put this in the marketing section as opposed to the creativity section, because it's really not about writing blog posts or some of those things that content creation tools can provide you. Rosato is great at understanding who your brand is, right? What your voice is, the types of words you use. It learns about the people that use your site. It understands the psychology of conversation flow and when you should hit people with triggers, and as it combines that with its understanding of the individuals of the site, you can produce very compelling copy for a variety of channels, not just email anymore. So a very exciting product. Company's done spectacularly well. Sybids, can't really do a screenshot there because it's really a plugin for DSP. But if you run your business and you rely on paid display advertising, programmatic advertising, you can save a lot of money using the neural network-based technology that Sybids has. It's the leader in a specific field for bidding optimization. But this is becoming very important as the world moves away from cookies, as privacy walls are coming up. The ability to understand programmatic bidding without using those things, which is pretty tough, is a strong advantage to anyone that can leverage it. So Sybids is doing quite well, winning lots of awards. If you're out there doing display ads, if you're doing search advertising, there's a product called Finch. There's some other people that do that. So in the world of marketing, there's many other things. Like I said, I can't talk about them all, but those are some interesting products that can help you with your conversion optimization, with your search engine optimization, with your copywriting, and with your bidding optimization. If you're running the sales force as well, there are many different AI tools that could be super helpful in figuring out how to build your business. The first one that I like a lot, it's a product called Chorus. Chorus is really about understanding the nature of the sales call. So much of what we do now is over Zoom, if not, much more than phone now. So it's recording the sales calls. It's mapping the interactions between parties. It understands the best practices in which calls had good outcomes. It can flag deal risks if the competitor is talking about price in the wrong way with the wrong tone of voice, those types of things. So it's a very effective training tool, right? I sort of put this in as a sales management solution, but it's much more than that, in that the goal is actually in real time to flag if there's things that the sales rep should be aware of, which is really neat. The goal, and it is a lofty goal, is to bring up all the sales reps to the level of your A players in the field, which may be a big goal, but we'll see. We have a lot of chats coming in, so just want to take a quick look on that. Excellent. So that's Chorus. Another product that's very interesting right now for those that are doing selling on the website is a product called Lift.ai. Lift sits in between the website and the chatbot, if you would. It's a system that is watching. It understands how people use your site historically. What are the triggers of their actions to various events on a website, and by doing that, it can then issue instructions to the chatbot or to the sales rep, whoever's at the other side of that, essentially doing lead scoring, right? This person, based on their actions on the site, looks like they're very primed to be buying right now, or it looks like they're hungry for this kind of information right now. You should pipe in on the chat and offer them a data sheet or a presentation or whatever it is. So Lift is not itself a chat bot, but it is a system out there that is really trying to map the behavior of the user to what is then being presented. So it's often mentioned a lot in context with Drift, which is one of the leading chatbot or conversational messaging providers, as a way to enhance the value you get from a chatbot like Drift. BigTinCan, this was not something I was familiar with before doing this research, but I'm actually quite excited by this. This is meant for not the smallest of businesses, but sort of mid-size on up. And it's really about when you have a large product line and a growing sales staff, how do you manage the information, the sales enablement tools, the presentations, the data sheets, the product overviews, the white papers? How are those modularized, and how can you bring those together as content elements, and at what time to best sell any given prospect? And so it's going to be very hard if you're selling something to try to figure out what materials to use. It's very time consuming. Most salespeople spend less than half their time actually selling. So anything that can help aggregate the content together and do so with intelligence is a pretty exciting prospect. So very excited about BigTinCan. And then there's I guess I'd say a gazillion chatbots out there. It can be very tough to see who's the best in the field. I certainly hear a lot about Drift. So that's who I selected for this. I'm not an expert in chatbots, I have to say, so I'm sure that there are many different ways of interacting. I think in their case, they're hanging their hat, Drift is hanging its hat on the number of sales conversations that it's been able to profile and the learnings you can get from that, which are so considerable, and what that means in terms of the intelligence of the chatbots that they can create for you. If you're interested in the whole in the whole notion of conversational mapping, which also feeds into chatbots, you might want to check out a company called TalkMap, TalkMap. That is more for the enterprise, but what TalkMap does, if you happen to work for a telephone company or an insurance company or someone large like that, is it maps the flows and splits of conversations in a very fascinating way, so you can really model in an aggregated way how millions of phone calls sort of are shaped, that then allows you to then identify where you have problems in your chatbot scripts or your call center scripts and things like that. When you look at management, there's many different things. Again, this is meant to be a survey, so it's not complete. Scheduling has always been a difficult task. I don't know if any of you remember X.AI. X.AI was a sort of a much talked about system that was launched 4 or 5 years ago. It was acquired by Bizzabo, which does event management, but the whole focus there was on smart scheduling. Calendar Hero has sort of taken over their niche, and this is a more incremental use of AI. It's certainly nothing breakthrough, but it's very hard to schedule, and especially when you have more than 2 people in the meeting, and especially when people have different hierarchies and different different priority order. Calendar Hero does incorporate a large number of things in relation to the individuals in different meeting types. It's learning the preferences of the users that are using it, so it'll know the times of day you like to meet and whatnot. These systems use natural language processing to understand when there's discussion of meetings and pick up on those threads and turn them into interactive, scheduling screens and things like that. So this is the scheduler to Jour. If you're hiring a lot, I found HireVue to be very helpful. In the recruitment area, HireVue is trying to deal with the issues around just how hard it is to hire people. I was in recruiting for a couple of years. It's very difficult to interview people, even if you're super well trained at it. It's very hard in areas like sales and business development, where everyone you're interviewing is pretty good at talking. And so what HireVue does is it helps establish profiles of who in your company does the best at the position at question, and then uses that as a model against which to match other people when they're applying for your company. It's a video interviewing platform that looks at facial expressions and is doing body language reading to sort of get inside of the candidate's head. And so it's slightly controversial in that, the notion of modeling your top players and, hiring everyone that sort of quote unquote looks like that could be seen as a challenge to diversity. Certainly HireVue doesn't feel that way. They make a counter argument. But I think the biggest issue is that it and why I like this is it's an additional set of eyes that are harder to fool than humanize when you're dealing with people and interviewing people, because it's just hard to do, and it's hard to learn and really get inside someone's head. So the better if you can improve your hiring rate from the 50% success rate that most businesses have to 60%, you've done a great job. And then finally, there's in terms of management, there's all sorts of stuff happening in different areas. Accounting is one of those. Vic.ai is a nice system for sort of mid-sized businesses and up for doing a lot of the automation of what you'd think of as rote accounting and bookkeeping tasks. What I like about Vic.ai is it does a lot of spending analysis, so it can see opportunities to save money. It's looking, both at your spending patterns, but it's also looking at what are the spending patterns of other companies in your industry, to see if things like your pricing is as good as it ought to be. So pretty interesting stuff for those of you that on the green eye shade side of the business. And then the final category I'd love to look at is the area of creativity. Creativity is one of these areas that people have often felt would be harder to automate with AI. But I'm very familiar with the fact that all of these dominoes tend to fall over time. I think, having been those of people that have spent time in sales, always felt like, well, you're not going to be able to automate the sales process. And we haven't done that yet, but we certainly are augmenting it. But creativity is different. Beautiful.ai is a very light use of AI, but it's what I use to design this presentation. It's not the best example of my graphic work, but the idea behind Beautiful.ai is to put design skills into the hands of non-designers like myself, and by using intelligent layout, planning, and things that just work, you can get to a level of graphic finish and polish that is much better that you could do on your own in something like PowerPoint. So continues to get more intelligent in how it approaches things, now doing video, interesting animation capabilities, great alternative to PowerPoint. Creating video for your business, whether that's for ads or for inspirational videos or music videos or trade shows or whatnot, can be a pain. Magisto is a product worth taking a look at. It was bought by Vimeo for a fair amount of money, I think a couple of years back. But basically, it's an automated video creator. If you give it assets, both still assets and video assets, and you give it guidelines in terms of style and typeface and the types of music you want, and then tell it the format that you want for the output and the length, then it will produce the video. So it's pretty useful tool if you have to crank out a lot of assets, which increasingly all of us do. Now that's I'd still call incremental. Moving to the exponential world of content creation. If you're not familiar with a product called Jarvis, it's worth taking a look. There's a lot going on in natural language content creation based around GPT-3. Jarvis is one of the outgrowths of that. Certainly seems to be the one getting the most buzz for. And basically, you give it certain cues. I like to write about these things. This is sort of how I write. These are, you give it certain inputs, and it cranks out content. It cranks out a lot of content. It can do it in 25 different languages. You can specify, I think there's 50 different copywriting styles, whether that's blog or Facebook post or LinkedIn post or whatever. But people have written books in this, and I think there's a lot of I've heard some people not be super happy with the level of content produced in some cases, but I've heard other people be equally ecstatic about the level of the quality of the content created by the system. So definitely worth taking a look at if you're trying to crank out blog posts. It's not going to take you out of the editing process, but I can speak personally as someone who writes a lot of content. This is both very exciting and very scary to me, but I imagine that when I will use products like this more, I'll find the use in them. I like to write my own stuff, but at the end of the day, I don't have enough time to do it. So a product like Jarvis can be very helpful. You pay by the word, essentially, unless you're on one of their more advanced subscription programs. Very interesting tool. And what's coming, and it's not here yet, but it's worth a look at, is really just the full outright creation of photographic or other types of images from nothing. And so this is something that comes out of OpenAI. So it's related to GPT-3. It's called DALL-E, named after Salvador Dali and the Pixar robot WALL-E. And there's a beta at the URL that's on this particular slide. It generates images from text. So the beta is not freeform, but it shows you how it changes based on different parameters. This particular list of images were auto-generated. They were created. They're not picking out from a library of photos. A rear view of a capybara sitting in a field. If you pick front view or top-down view, it'll give you a whole other set of images it's generated. You can change the background. And this is where it's going to, right? So it really raises some profound questions. I don't think it replaces photographers from the standpoint of art, but it may allow a lot of production artwork and design work to be done in an automated fashion. We'll see, right? It's one of those things, but I'm pretty excited about this particular development. So those are 15 different tools as things that we can use to integrate AI into our business. But you have the option as well of creating your own AI. And well, I'm not going to get into this too much. There's a set of solutions out there that range from if you're already doing coding, modules that you can access, pre-existing models, whether that's for natural language recognition or bird identification or disease lookups or things like that. There's people out there that with models that you can query. If you happen to have your own data, whether that's image data or text data that you want to model, there are solutions like Vidora or Platform.ai or Inatescus or others that will give you the tools that you can label your own data, whatever that means. It might mean naming the object in the video. It might mean identifying the meaning of the words, but to do so in a highly automated and fast fashion so that at the end of the process, you've labeled your data, you can train the model in their system, and you can create your own AI. And I think, if you have a vision, if you see the opportunity to change a process, if you see something's broken, and you can either learn from a past pattern of data that you have access to, or evolve the right solution from the ground up, then you can really create some very powerful products here. So if you're prone to develop, see what's out there, because it's getting much easier and easier to build AI. And while we're not, at low code AI yet, we will get there, and particularly in computer vision, we're seeing a lot of ways to build computer vision models. So some final thoughts. So we have some time for Q&A. The first thought is your data is dirty. I don't mean like dirty, dirty. I mean, my experience in working with companies is whether they're large or small, is that the way in which we organize and store and curate our data is quite messy. It is one of the biggest things that will block us from building our own AI. So if you're thinking about going down that past route of building your own, then you want to pay some attention to data hygiene. There are also software packages that will help with that. AI is a work in progress, so you'll need to keep in mind that we're at the very beginning of this curve. There's so much exciting stuff happening now, but there's a lot more yet to come for sure. We won't recognize 10 years from now where we've been. There's also a lot of hype. So if you're being sold AI solutions, you need to ask the tough questions. You need to really get in there and not just take AI as something they say, but try to understand, how does this really change how your product works? Is it incremental? Is it exponential? How have you benchmarked that? How much can they speak about how they're doing the AI? You really want to drill down, because a lot of people are using AI still as a marketing word. If all you can do is get incremental performance out of AI, do that. But if you have opportunities to play exponentially, you should do that. Do remember, AI is a statistical process, and it is not always right? If we get to be right 80, 85, 90% of the time, that's great. It's just really important. It's not the gospel. It is essentially statistics. And then finally is that AI is not coming for your job. It's not learning AI. That'll be the big risk to jobs going forward. So with that, I will close. I hope this was useful. I'd urge you to consider that the sooner you adopt AI into your business, the sooner you will adapt and continue to take advantage of this most exciting time. So with that, I will close, and happy to take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the people who were watching us on YouTube and who are watching it on replay. If you would like to reach out to Jonathan, you will see the details on the screen right now. Please reach out to him on through the website or through the email. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for doing this. Now I'm stopped